Welcome to episode 55 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Hey, howdy, that's me.
Huh? That is you. Kyle, how are you this week?
I am doing pretty good. We went and saw Avengers Endgame.
Yes.
And it was so good. We have a spoiler cast all about that as well. That will be, I guess, out the day before this comes out. So by the time this goes public, our Avengers Endgame spoiler cast will be out. And we talked for 3 whole hours.
We did the length of the entire film.
It was amazing, though. I love getting to do that. It's a lot of fun.
It was a really great time. Yes, I've been having a good week too, because it's all just been Endgame centric.
Yeah, exactly.
Took a vacation day to go see it and everything.
Exactly. Lucky you. I wish I got to take off of work and just be like, I'm gonna take the day and prepare myself. Nope. Oh boy, it is a pretty good weekend for me here. I bought a video game last night called Baba Is You. And
I don't know this.
It's a little puzzle game. And it's fascinating. There's these roles on screen there, and you're this little like sheep character, and you can like walk around, but you can like each section of a role is something you can like move or push or do something, so you can kind of rearrange the roles of the game to make it so you have to win. Like Baba is you. Flag is win, or stone is push. And so like, okay, so I know I can push stones, I need to reach the flag to win, but how do I do that? Sometimes you need to be creative and rearrange the stuff, and it's really neat.
That sounds really fun.
I highly recommend it. If you have a Nintendo Switch, it's a perfect little puzzle game.
Ooh,
there you go.
That's a great way to spend the weekend. Later today, me and my family are getting together to start planning our Star Wars RPG.
Oh boy. That
Very excited about that.
Yeah.
But before I can get there...
What was your character's name?
I am playing a droid named D23, who is basically a Disney Parks audio animatronic. Who is sent to another park because he's not an animatronic, he is an employee because he's a living droid, and he just sort of gets lost on the way to the other location of this theme park chain.
That's fantastic.
I'm very excited to be this.
You told me about that, I think, last week on the Captain's Log, or the week before or something, but that sounded like fun.
Yeah, it is fun, but it is time for us to get down to business before we can be sheep, before we can be robots. Before we can do any of this, we have to talk about our subject at hand for this week. We listened to an audio drama. This is the first audio drama we've done in a while.
Yeah.
This is one called The Earth Collective. This was created by and stars Mike Troup. And according to my podcast feed, it said it started in 2017, but I wonder if maybe that was a new feed, because I think I remember listening to it like a little bit earlier than that. But it is recent. It's in the last handful of years, and we listened to the first 2 seasons of it, which is all that's been put out so far.
Yeah. I forget. I think the most recent thing that came out on their feed was a teaser for season 3. Did they say when season 3 was debuting? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Okay. Darn, I was gonna say, hey, in like 3 weeks from now, who knows?
No.
Yeah, so we listened to seasons 1 and 2 of the Earth Collective. This was your suggestion.
Yeah, I found this however many years ago, and when it was just season 1 that was out, and I listened to it and I loved it. And like I listened through it again, like waiting for season 2 to come out. And then when season 2 came out, we were already doing this show, and I'm like, oh, I'll save this and I'll pitch this whole thing to Kyle sometime.
That works. Um, oh man, I still have the social media things up. That always happens to me. Um, yeah, so I picked this one because you pitched a number of audio dramas this last week, and I picked this one for us to do because I hadn't heard of it.
Hmm.
Uh, this one was a new one for me. I'm sure in my exploration of audio dramas on Twitter, I'm sure I saw it at some point.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about it, so I was like, "Ooh, let's do the one I haven't listened to and haven't heard of."
Yeah, I think I found it in like one master post of audio dramas
Mhm.
on Tumblr years ago. This might have been the same post where I found The Fearsome Morning,
Oh,
which
okay.
is another podcast I love. We did an episode about that one.
Yeah,
And
that
I
was
have not
fun.
I have not heard people really talk about these shows. This one is a really cool concept behind it.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't listened to it yet, we're gonna do like a short synopsis
Yeah.
and some general thoughts and impressions, and then we'll get into spoiler territory, talking about the first 2 seasons.
Hmm.
So let's see. The concept behind this is that something happened on Earth, some kind of apocalyptic event. Humans had to leave
Hmm.
Earth in search of a new home. They eventually found a planet that they named Oasis. It's
Hmm.
spelled a little bit differently than what we would normally spell it as.
Hmm.
But they started building a life there, and then something crashed on the planet. They don't know exactly what it was, but ever since that thing crashed on the planet, the darkness has been deadly for them. They need to avoid the dark.
Yeah,
And
there's
so
some
they,
sort of intangible living force in the
yeah, or
darkness
some
that'll
kind of
get you.
monsters or
Yeah.
something. But they don't know exactly what it is, so they learn to live on the move. They build these like giant city-like vehicles that just
Hmm.
are in this big long caravan, and they are traveling around the country nonstop to avoid the darkness and always stay
Hmm.
in the light. And we follow Joseph Crane, who is a mechanic and wants to be a bit of a historian, and he's
Yeah.
documenting life.
Because this society is always on the move. Like, there's not a lot of rest, there's not a lot of downtime, and there's not a lot of archives. Like, what they remember of their past is a lot of just like oral history, like passed
Stories
down
and
from
myths
person to
and
person.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, we barely know what happened to them. What if that same thing happens to us? You're not real unless somebody remembers you. So he is sending these audio logs of just, this is what I know of our history. This is what life is like. This is what I'm doing. Up to the last remnant of like ancestor technology, which is this one satellite that he thinks is still up in space because nobody knows any different.
Well, apparently it's working because somehow we can
Yeah,
listen to it.
it must be because we can.
um, yeah. So that kind of covers it. It starts out as him just documenting stuff, but
Hmm.
strange things starts happening, and then he ends up investigating a couple different things, and
Hmm.
that's kind of how the story gets put together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's good. What did you think? Yeah, you did. Have you listened to season 2? Have you listened to all
No,
of this stuff, or
I've
was it
listened to
only season 1?
season. I listened to season one before a couple
Okay.
times. This was my first time for season two, and like a lot of the little bonus things, like the inter-season episodes
Mhm.
and little things. Like here's a preview of a Patreon series. This was my first time for everything else.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, this was my first time for it all. Um, I think for me personally, it started off very slow. But by the end of season 2, I think it's pretty good. I like it. I like the whoa. I like the world that they've made
Yes.
there, and they're starting to unravel some interesting plot threads that
Mhm.
I'm very fascinated with.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a little bit of our housekeeping, and then we can get into spoiler territory and sort of dissect more of the mysteries that the show has going
Sure.
on.
Well, the first thing I want to mention is Saturday, May 4th is Free Comic Book Day.
It is!
Yeah, I forgot to mention this on our Avengers Endgame episode, so I'm gonna put in some little thing at the start to be like, hey, don't forget. But yeah, you guys can go to your local comic book store and pick up some free comics and check them out, and I'm sure there's going to be huge sales and stuff like that. We've covered a number of comics on this show, so maybe you can pick up something we've covered and come back and listen to one of our episodes. I think that would be fun. Let's see. We already mentioned the Avengers spoiler cast. We should have another episode of the Captain's Log up before this as well. We have yet to record it because we're doing things out of order this week.
Yeah, because the time when we would have recorded it, I was watching Endgame.
Yes.
That took precedent.
But let's see. Last week on the review show, we had a really cool episode about an anime called Terror in Resonance. Or Terror in Tokyo. You can find it on Hulu. It's by Shinichiro Watanabe, who did Cowboy Bebop, stuff like that. I highly recommend you guys go check it out. We also have some exclusive episodes of the review show on our Patreon. Melissa, do you want to tell them about that?
Yes, we have been doing once a month so far, these bonus review show episodes, the same format of the review show, but we're doing kind of weirder, wilder, like more specific and curated content choices. We did a couple one-shot Monster of the Week episodes of X-Files that were all by the same writer. We did 3 episodes of Batman Beyond and a companion episode of Justice League Unlimited that kind of told one arc. And now we're going to do Shrek Retold, which is a bunch of different animators getting together and retelling the exact plot of Shrek bit by bit, the entire length of the movie, which is a fun collaboration you can go watch on YouTube.
There you go. Yeah, so we got all sorts of stuff on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Whatnauts. And for a single dollar, you can get all our episodes early and access to the live streams of this show. We post a link in our Discord. And the $3 level is where you can get the exclusive shows. And at the $5 level, you can get a shout out on the podcast. So thank you to everyone who is our patrons, our Patreon supporters, but a big extra special thank you to Eric, Sam, and Christine for helping us out, keeping the mics on, stuff like that. We appreciate you guys a ton. Thank you so much. I think that's all the housekeeping we have.
Yeah.
So let's
get on into it.
Pew pew pew. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler sounds.
I was hoping to have a sound effect last week. I was like, my goal will be to have the sound effect for this week, as well as update the like little animation stinger at the start of the YouTube version of this. And I did the animation, and then I was in a like motion graphics creative mood, so I was like, I'm just gonna redo the review show intro. So we also have our new animated intro at the start of this, which should be neat. But with all that, I didn't have time to make a sound for our spoiler alert thing. So spoiler alert,
we have to do it with our voices.
Yes, exactly. Where do you want to start with this one?
You said it was kind of slow at the beginning. I kind of like how slow it is. Looking back on the show, I think my favorite parts are less of the monologue, less of the like dialogue, audio drama, more traditional parts, and more of Joseph just telling you things. Because this world is so rich. And it, like, the world building of it is its strongest feature, I think. And I'm like, yes, just sit here and tell me like even the most mundane technical stuff. I think it's fascinating. So
I guess my like one of my main issues with this is not too much of an issue. I feel like it's kind of the nature of audio drama podcasts like this, where like audio drama has a fantastic community built up around it. They're all super supportive, and they know that it's not just these big budget Hollywood
Yeah.
movie things. It is often just one or two people making this thing. Maybe they have one good microphone, maybe they don't have good microphones, but they're creating this story in this world, and they're putting their heart and soul into that. And I think the community recognizes that, which is really neat. And I think with this show in particular, I think it starts off doing a certain thing and then kind of grows out of that, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Even shows like the Bright Sessions did that. Like, it started out as this, hey, we're gonna record these therapy sessions, and then it spiraled way past that. And this starts in a similar fashion, where it's very exposition, just like, here's how we collect water, here's how we move, here's how we do this, here's how the segments work, stuff like that. And I like that in its own right, but then they didn't stick with it, and it felt like the main kid. It felt like they were trying to stick to an in-story reason to have recorded things a little too much, and it was just like that's the thing. Like, I don't dislike either part, but I like the more, let's just see how this scene plays out. Like, I like that stuff more personally. But if they didn't have that and it was only this more like historical stuff, I think that would be neat too.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes back and forth, if not almost abandons the very like exposition heavy stuff.
I understand that. I love an audio drama that is formatted exactly like what it is within the world. I'm Douglas Eiffel on the Hephaestus. These are my communication logs.
Exactly.
I'm Alex Regan. I'm a podcaster. These are my interview tapes with Dr. Richard Strand. I like when it's got an in-universe reason to be what it is, which a lot of audio dramas do, but I love it every time.
Kind of abandoned that.
It does, yeah.
Too. I think even Ars Paradoxica was supposed to be like, hey, these are the logs of Dr. Sally Grissom, and I just see a bunch of these shows like moving past that, and I'm not necessarily wondering, but I think it's because they felt limited by what they could do with that. Like, hey, it needs to be the audio diary of this specific person. If those things are mixed in there, I think that's totally fine. Like, hey, we're getting a special episode that is all this here's this historical record of the segment 18 or whatever one they're on, but I don't feel like it necessarily needs that, and I think a lot of audio drama podcasts really take to that format, and they're like, oh, that's sweet, we can do this, we can do it that way, and it's this neat initial idea, but then I feel like they start to write themselves into a corner and be like, maybe I don't have to stick to that so much. Let's go
maybe
over
we don't have
this
to have
way.
an in-universe explanation for why the recorder is always on.
Just
Although I
tell
do
me the
like
story.
Yeah, I do like how the show kind of, as it grows and like the cast becomes bigger, there are people that like Joseph is talking to who says they just don't want to be recorded. So you're just hearing Joseph like recap who they are and like what they told him, which is neat.
I like that. I like that his recorder can only work for so long, and then if he has to, it takes him like a week to recharge it. I think that aspect is neat. But yeah, because then he has to kind of sit there and recount what happened, which is, I feel like, more of a historical record, however true it may be.
Yeah.
Maybe it happened a week ago, and maybe his memories of it aren't exactly what they need to be, or who knows what. So I like that, but then it's also seems like he has a second recorder and he's playing tapes of things he recorded on the tape that he's sending to. I like
Yeah,
it
because
was a
the
little bit
audio
much.
quality's not always the same. Yeah.
It was a little bit much, and I was like, I'm totally fine with you just telling me this story. You don't need to play a tape on the tape, but yeah, I think by it started to get away from that. And then just be like, hey, here's the story we're telling. Here's the character
Mhm.
I'm running into. I mean, he still has his tape thing
Mhm.
there, but it's not. It doesn't seem as like stuck to this. Hey, this needs to be a historical record of
Mhm.
life here on Oasis.
Yeah. You talked about how he can only record for so long at a time
Mm-hmm.
because the battery runs out. The longest episode there is 27 minutes long, and that's far longer than anything else. Most things are right around like 15 minutes,
He
which
did
is kind of neat.
redesign his recorder thing though.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, when
that
he went out
could
into the
explain it because he said,
wilderness.
yeah, he did say it has like a bigger pack, which
Mhm.
means longer battery life. So that explains it, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, I like how it's usually kept very short. Hey, here's a
Yeah.
15-minute
Mhm.
long thing, you know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of dystopias. I believe you and I have covered this, but I do like the drama and the puzzle solving of scarcity.
Yeah,
And I like that element throughout this story. Like it's not super
there's
grim, but there is like we have limited resources.
there is
We're
a
in a weird
survival
situation.
aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the survival part of it. And I like that that lends itself to the format of the show. Like when the thing starts beeping, like my battery's dying, I have to stop. I have to talk to you again whenever the battery's recharged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. Um, I also want to talk real fast about the like extras that were
Yeah. Yeah, I
in
listened to
this.
all of the extras in this feed.
Same here. Um, I so the first one they did was more of the like fireside story time. Uh,
Yeah.
let's do it that way. There was a couple of them that were more audio book formats,
Hmm.
um, where the author is like rating off. He said this, and then she said that.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll be honest, I kind of liked both of those formats a little bit
Hmm.
more, which was interesting to me.
Hmm.
I mean, that I guess is something that is then enticing me to want to go support them on Patreon. But I almost liked that storytelling format more. Like your history is all of these stories. Why not
Hmm.
sit there and tell those stories as a way to
Yeah.
build out that world? Which is, I mean, on one hand, is a way he's doing it, but I guess from my personal perspective, I like a story rather than
Hmm.
just like, hey, here's all the exposition facts. Here's how we get water and all that stuff. I want more show me, don't tell me this stuff. So
Yeah.
if you have this fantastical story about, this thing that hit the planet is a punishment from God, and here's the story behind it. I want to know that, not okay, so there's something in the dark, here's what we know, here's fact 1, here's fact 2. It's like, I tell me a story.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. Even like Joseph's sort of more technical manual sort of things, I like because it put you are being told a story, you are not listening to like two different people talk to each other, and something about that being told something is like cozier, it's intimate.
Yeah.
Oh, it takes you back to being like a little kid and your dad's trying to explain something to you, and that I like. That I always respond to pretty well. And this is a great example of it. He's got a lovely
Yeah.
voice. It's so calming. I like the episode where I think he's talking about like how like when the caravans like sort of take a break, like when they get to the straight ways or when it rains or whatever. There's some episode with like soft rain sounds in the background that's just absolutely lovely.
Yeah. Let's move to the sound design a bit now that
Yeah.
you mentioned the rain stuff. I don't know how many people are working on this. I believe it's just him
Yeah, I don't know if
making
I've
this.
heard another name mentioned.
But yeah, I think if it's one or two people, regardless, I think the sound design is
Yeah.
usually fantastic.
Hmm.
There is some differences in like volume and audio quality I
Yeah.
notice from time to time. But again, I think that's just part of the medium of audio drama, since it's so so open and available to
Hmm.
everyone. Despite the resources you might have, you might get some that are highly put together and funded, and then you might have some that are a little bit less just homemade and intimate.
Hmm.
And I think this for I think feeling more homemade is very well put together.
Yeah.
And I really liked a lot of the sound design in this.
I can't picture here metaphorically because it is sound design. I can't recall a lot of the sound design, which I guess is the strength of it. It's supposed to kind of vanish. You're supposed to like not really notice it's there at all
Or
if it's
just yeah,
done
be
well.
realistic enough that
Yes.
it's not a like that it's not like you don't really have to think about it.
Exactly.
Um, there was one moment. It was later on, I believe, in season 2, and he is. I think it's season 2. I think it's when he discovers that first, like church like building.
Hmm.
Um, I don't remember what they called them or stuff like that.
The
But
one with
yeah,
the numbers?
yeah, it's with the numbers, the human-like figure who has his arms up, and
Yeah.
there's the like bowl of all the broken technology and stuff
Yes.
like that. Yeah, it seems like some kind of church is
Hmm.
what is what I thought of. But when he's discovering it, it sounds like he's walking into this abandoned building, and he's going in there, and he gets into like the main room, and as he gets in there, there's more and more reverb on and more of
Oh,
an
yeah.
echo on his voice. I was like, they did that really well. I
Hmm.
liked that. Um, and yeah, that was a time where I was like, oh yeah, like that put me in the story of just like I am right there with him in this room. He goes from one part of it that is that there's no echo really. You can hear his footsteps and stuff like that, but then he goes into this bigger room, and the sound acts exactly like that he is in this bigger hollow room, and there's an echo.
Hmm.
Um that was neat. I really
Yeah.
I really liked that, and I like the I guess because they're in these big caravans, there's this
Hmm.
like constant hum of the
Yes.
engines and stuff like that. Um, which I don't know if it's weird because I'm gonna say it was on purpose because it sounds like a
Hmm.
sound that he put in there himself. However, I know with a lot of cheaper mics that aren't the ones that will record like, hey, what's right here in
Yes.
front of the mic, they'll get all this background noise, they'll get the vents and stuff like that, and it
Yeah.
already kind of sounds like that.
Yes.
So at first I was wondering if he was using a not the right kind of mic to just get a
Hmm.
voice, and I was like, I guess that makes sense. He might not have the like in story, that character might not have the right kind of microphone. It
Hmm.
might be really loud where they live, where there's just this
Yeah.
constant hum and rattle. So I was like, huh, so I guess that fits. I don't think he did this on accident. Like I think this was
No.
all on purpose. And so yeah, I was like, that's fantastic. That's good.
Hmm.
Good quality audio design.
Yeah, yeah, I think it sounds great. And I think this is a story that is particularly very well suited to being in an audio format.
Yeah.
Like, they're living someplace, I mean, they're on another planet. It is literally completely alien, but the life in this giant series of caravans, and it must go on for miles and miles. And I think he says some of the biggest caravans are like 5 stories
Yeah.
tall. Like, that's really difficult to picture. And I like that you just have to picture it yourself. Like, you're not provided any like illustrations or technical drawings or anything like that. Like, he never gets that specific
I know he
to the
is
setting.
wanting to work on a comic. I
I
read
would
that on
like to
his
see a
Patreon,
comic, yeah.
like 1 or 2 pages a month comic. Um, but yeah, I was curious as to how many like vehicles in this caravan there were.
There are 18 sections, and it seems like there's a lot of vehicles per section. There's like
That's what I
living
didn't
cars
understand, because
and
I had thought each section was its own car, was its own vehicle at first, and then he
they
said something later on that there was like there were hundreds of cars or something along that line. I was like, wait,
yeah,
I thought there was like
I think
18 segments or something like that, so there was only 18 of them, and then
there
I
might
don't
be
know,
like 18 like big main like hub cars, but I think he
a
says
bunch of
there's
like
like
smaller ones.
there's a car for a diner, there's a car for a grocery store. There's a car for a little shop. There's different family
I guess we
cars.
don't know the population of
Yeah, like the
Oasis.
population is fuzzy, like how many people, how much space they take, how long it takes to
Yeah.
drive around this entire planet, how big the planet is. There's so many like logistical things to help you picture it that aren't there. And I kind of like that it's just up to your interpretation. Like, I
Yeah.
would like to, having listened to this so much, being invested in the story, like now I would like to see illustrations and like a little comic taking a
Hmm.
like literal look into this world. But I like that it's something so strange that you just have to picture for yourself.
Yeah. Um yeah, it works best, I think, when you have when you leave some stuff to the imagination, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just we don't know exactly, which I guess is why I gravitated more towards the story
Mm-hmm.
aspects rather than him being like, this is how we get water, this is how we make food, this is how we, I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
want things to my imagination. You don't need to tell me how you make water. That's just me. I don't know. Let's dive into more of the story aspect and
Yeah.
what's happening here. Um, I get the so I feel like from season 1 to season 2, the story kind of shifts
Yes.
to two different things. Season 1 is more about this girl Emma and how
Mm-hmm.
Joseph met her. Apparently, she's been listening in on the
Mm.
broadcasts, which he thought was just going up to the satellite and no one else.
Yeah.
And Emma, I guess her father was murdered for something he found scientifically.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what it was until later on. I guess we think we know what it is. And so it's them trying to solve that mystery. But at the end of season 1, Emma kind of vanishes.
Yeah.
Um, and then we get the interstitial, like, hey, between season 1 and 2. I really liked that
I
story.
liked that a lot too. I
Yeah,
like what this story is. It's almost becoming a private eye kind of story. Like Joseph's out there sort of exploring things and discovering things and trying to find answers to these questions.
yeah,
And other people kind of latch on to the fact that he does that. And he's maybe better at that than anybody else is, because this is not a world where people really stop and ask questions because they can't stop. They just go about their lives, they do their jobs, they keep everything moving.
uh-huh.
And I like that it could evolve into he becomes like the one guy, maybe if not in the entire collective, but like within his section or within like the surrounding sections, like that's the guy you go to when you need an answer and he will find it.
Yeah, yeah. He'll be private eye.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that story a lot. If I'm not mistaken, that was written by someone else. It was not written by the
Oh.
creator, because that was, from what I understood, someone else wrote it, and then he was the one that read it off and performed
Hmm.
it. But that one was neat. It was him discovering
Oh,
basically
yes.
an iPad. and him not necessarily knowing what to do with it, seeing if he can recharge it, and then going to his friend to be like, hey, I have this thing, can you
Yeah.
not tell me? And he's like, well, I won't tell if you help me out with this one thing.
Just FYI, the writer for the interseason story was Stephen Dominguez.
There you go. Good to know. But yeah, so he ends up helping his buddy, who is a guard, who's looking for this runaway girl, this missing girl. That one seems maybe a little bit more like a crime noir private detective story. And he ends up doing something he's not really proud of. And I think it was a great character moment.
I liked that.
Like that last episode is kind of taking place after the fact, and he's recounting what happened, and you can just tell he is not okay with what he did.
No,
he's just like, I fucked up. Like I did something I shouldn't have.
I think that was a great narrative choice to have a character who does screw up that bad, or like he does something in his own self-interest, not for selfishness necessarily, but just to. So he's found this iPad thing that he shows his buddy, the guard, and the guard's like, help me find this missing girl. And he finds the girl, and he's like, oh, you ran away because you weren't happy here, and you found a place where you were happy. You found people who were going to help you. And he has to rat out this family who's been hiding this girl and a lot of other like innocent runaways throughout the caravan. He has to rat them out to his friend in order to keep his friend from like incriminating him for he's keeping something he's not supposed to have.
Yeah.
Because Joseph thinks this is something that's going to help him like get more answers. Like, where do we come from? What's in the darkness? What's going on around here?
What are these weird numbers that keep popping up on my feed, you know?
He wants to stay where he's at. He's like, I'm still on a journey, and I don't want to be thrown in jail or worse. Like, there's so much fear going on. And I like that what he's doing is indicative of kind of everybody around him and the situation everybody is in. They're in scary circumstances, you know, and this really it has become a culture about protect what's yours, maintain your status quo, keep moving.
Yeah. So after that, season 2 kind of moves on. We don't really know what happened to Emma, but we kind of start focusing on exploring the world outside of the caravan a little bit.
Yeah.
More, discovering this church and what these numbers are. And I'll be honest, that number voice, that is scary as hell.
I love it. I
hate it. It is so scary.
I love it because I hate it. Like it's so unnerving. And I wouldn't describe, this is a sci-fi story. I wouldn't really describe it as a horror story, but when it takes a turn into something horror related, it does it so well.
It really does.
It's really creepy.
Yeah. From the big like camera eyeball looking thing that like looked at them while they were out in the middle of nowhere to these numbers, and it's just like, hello, help me. You know?
And I imagine that is a computer program and not a modulated human voice. It's tricky to tell, but like whatever you were doing,
sounds
to
like
that
some
voice,
kind of AI robotic system that has like, somehow reached sentience or something.
Like whatever you were doing technically to that voice that is artificially created, probably, like you made that robot a very good actor.
Yeah.
I don't like, there's something about this robot voice that sounds a little different than most other just like plug-in robot voices that I've heard in other things.
It sounds like one of the voices that, like, for example, like Stephen Hawking used. Like it is for someone who might be like speech impaired or something, and so they can like type it out, and it has this voice and it has these different inflections and stuff like that, you know. So
it sounds more natural than most other robot voices which I really liked about it. It makes you like really, you're not just like alarmed, you'll kind of care for whatever numbers is. This sort of intelligence that doesn't know a thing about itself. And it really, do you think at the end that is a wholly created artificial intelligence?
I don't know.
Because
Is there something that's making you think it's not?
I think at the beginning it's a little fuzzy in that it could be a wholly created AI, or maybe like um a human, it was a once a human intelligence that was put into an AI. Like think about
Potentially.
Armin Zola in The Winter Soldier,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it seems created. Like it is now what it always was. It wasn't something that then evolved or transformed into what it is now,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Um, I think whatever it is, I think it's somewhere in the dark, which is why
Yeah.
it's so cold.
Yes.
Because we haven't gotten to explore the dark and what's in there, so I don't know if it's like, if this is a planet that in the light it is like hot enough,
Hmm.
where it stays hot all the time, but in the darkness it gets cold enough where like it snows or it's freezing or
Yeah.
something like that. I'm imagining
Maybe.
it's something like that.
And we don't know like the climate of this world
Mhm.
very well. I know we've heard that it rains. I don't know if we've heard much about snow or about temperatures or anything like that. If it's anything like Earth, maybe wherever numbers is like way up there, where you
Way
get
up
up
in, yeah.
into like Alaska or someplace where it's like, well,
Another
it's
thing I
dark
was
20
thinking,
hours of the day.
another thing I was thinking is that it is the satellite
It
that, because it's cold in space, like
is.
and so it is this like sentient satellite
I
that
like
was
that.
communicating with the people on Oasis when this
Hmm.
event happened, and things went dark. And I don't know if it's somehow Joseph recording these things that kind of woke it back up.
Hmm.
Maybe somehow, who knows?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
or something else
Oh,
happened. But that voice is scary. I was listening to it last night when it got to the more
mhm.
conversational stuff instead of just the numbers, and I was home alone in
Ugh.
my house, and I was just like, oh god, I hate this.
It's so eerie. Like something about consciousness and archaic abandoned technology put together. Like that's one of my favorite horror
Yeah.
things that always affects me so much. And the fact that it has been going on for s- centuries, millennia.
Generations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like the time is so fuzzy, but it is beyond the time that like yeah, it's generations above anything that Joseph knows, and it's still out there. It's still looping. Oh, it reminded me a lot of the French recording in Lost.
That's what I was thinking
Yep,
too. It's
yep.
some kind of distress signal. It's something,
Like this has been on a loop for 16 years.
where are we?
Like that combined with the batteries are dying gave me a
Yeah,
lot of Lost vibes.
yeah, um, yeah. Like I, I really want to know what that voice is, what the numbers are. I also want to know, and they kind of abandoned this too, what that other caravan was, the thing that people see when they start going crazy, or
Oh, the
if
long
it
line
is,
of cars.
yeah. Like what exactly is that? It just seemed like this mass hallucination, and then they just move away and never mention
I
it again.
I think that is I don't think it's dropped. I think it's just a that's a long burn. That's a long-term storyline to get back out to the long line of cars. And I would guess that it is these cast people who no longer have a vehicle, can't get themselves onto another vehicle. I think they go out there and they just scrounge for parts, and maybe they are able to make something out of like abandoned ancestor, supplies and technology. And it's their own like sort of Mad Max, community out there just sort of slowly trailing after the main caravan.
But it's it's weird then that people really only see it when they're like deeply depressed or
Yeah.
they've almost gone in, like they're starting to lose their mind, they have some cabin fever.
Hmm.
So that makes me wonder if it even is real and it is more of this like, I don't want to say mass hallucination, but along those lines of just this like this idealistic sense of, hey, there's something else out there that I can potentially go to.
Yeah,
There's
and
something beyond this caravan that we live in.
we don't know all of the flora and fauna of this planet. There could be something that has like a masking, camouflaging element to it. Like what if you've got something like oh, is it a predator that can blend into its
Yes,
surroundings? You've got
yes,
okay. You got
that's the
something
one.
like a you've got something like a predator that can chameleon itself, and it looks out at this like big caravan and it thinks, is that another creature like me? To protect myself, should I make myself look like it?
Maybe.
And
Yeah,
maybe people go out to this long line of cars and get straight gobbled up. Who knows? I
potentially.
We don't learn a lot about the other creatures on the planet, but I like whenever we do get to learn about them because they're so briefly described, but they're like there's a part when he's out in the wilderness where Joseph catches like this creature and he's like, it's small, it's heavy, brown fur,
Five
five
legs.
legs.
Yeah.
And
Lots of meat.
I love the grabbers
Yeah.
and that they're just described as we never really know what they look like. Their arms are so long, their bodies can hide back in the trees, and it's just the arms that get you.
Yeah. I
That's
I I kind of imagine them like chameleons, but
mm,
or yeah, just like praying mantis looking things with
yeah,
just these long arms that can, you know, stick out and grab them.
yeah.
Grab them. So yeah, I like all that stuff. I guess one of my other kind of complaints with
Mm,
the story is how segmented it is. This idea that
aw.
we kind of dropped the thread of this other caravan. We don't really know what happened to Emma, and she's not really even mentioned all that much in season
He mentions her
two.
periodically, but it
Sure,
is just like still, I don't know where
he's just
Emma
moved
is.
on. And like that's what it seems like, but it seemed like in season one that this was the start of an important story, and
Mhm.
it seems like we've moved on, and I feel like there might be a better way to weave all that stuff
Yeah.
in
The end of
together.
season two is looping back around to a lot of what season one covered. And I don't think anything ever gets dropped. I think just like Joseph in his real life, he just has to
Right.
reprioritize
Yeah,
things.
always have to keep moving. Like I get that, but I feel like the A plot and the B plot are it's either or. It's never,
Hmm.
hey, we're on our way to do some stuff for the A plot while we're talking about some stuff for the B,
Hmm.
or we discover something for the B plot while we thought we were looking for something for A. It's always just like, all right, we're gonna focus on this one thing for this whole season, and it felt just, yeah, it felt
Hmm.
segmented.
Yeah.
So maybe season three will start to wrap some stuff
Yeah, like get more
together a
threads
little bit
like
more.
intertwining with
Yeah,
each other.
I think that would be
S-
neat.
something this is not this story's fault. This is just this story like in and of itself. This is just this story in a world of other stories.
Hmm.
I realize this is real, this is relatable, this is pertinent. I am a little tired of the rich people are the bad guys.
I mean, they're not wrong.
I just like I understand it is real world relatable. It makes sense. I've just seen it in so many stories where it's like, well, the people at the front have all the resources and they don't want like there's I don't like
The one thing
cl-
that I like about it is that they're not visible. Like
yeah,
they're
I
not
think
mixed
it's
in. They're like, oh, here's the tower where all the rich people work. Where I'm walking by it, or I have to work in the basement of that
yeah, like
building.
rich
They're just completely. We don't even see them.
I do kind of like that rich people are almost like a rumor. Like everybody is just in
I heard rich people exist.
I I I understand classism is real and it's something people definitely want to write about and talk about
Yeah.
just as a narrative thing. I feel like I personally don't get much out of it from time to time. I feel like
Mhm.
I've not seen very many. I'd like stories that have had it, but it's never my story.
Not your
But
favorite,
I
yeah.
do like what this story Yeah, I do like what this story does where everybody is the areas they're in are so big. It's like the two sides like don't they just hear about each other. It's like, well, I've heard about Caravan 1 and I've heard about Caravan 18. And it seems like Joseph's kind of right in the middle. Like he might be in like, the 10, 11, 12 range. We don't really know
Hmm.
where he's from, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I do like how much just hearsay and rumors that is. And like you hear about the people at the front of the caravan, but you never really hear from them. They don't get a perspective. And the same thing with the people at the very end. You hear about them, you don't get their perspective.
Yeah. I
And
think that
I'm
would be an interesting plot thread to bring
mm,
up as well, because Joseph is kind of doing these broadcasts by himself without really asking. I mean, it's illegal for him to be doing this,
yeah.
basically, but that's the thing. It's history from only his perspective. So
Yeah.
we get that one start at the beginning when we first hear Emma, and she's like, "You're wrong about the dark,"
Mhm.
which is super mysterious thing to say, and that's it makes her seem like she knows something, but then we don't really know what it is that she knows.
Yeah.
That's another thing. But yeah, to see him kind of meet up with other people and discuss it and get other
Mhm.
perspectives, I think would be an interesting thing to
Yeah.
add to this.
I
Like, hey,
think
this
he
is how it's worked for me.
yeah.
What is it like for you?
I think he has mentioned a couple times in season 1 like I only know what I know.
Yeah.
And he's out there figuring out these mysteries, answering all these questions. I wish there was a little bit more of exploration of people. Like, I want to really talk to somebody who lives all the way up at Caravan 1 and all the way back at Caravan 18. But there is also that, like, that's almost as logistically tricky as going out and solving a mystery. Like,
Yeah.
how big are these? How long would it take you to get up to Caravan 1 if you're in, like, Caravan 12?
It sounds
How do
like
you
their
travel
smaller
there?
vehicles are a lot
Yeah.
faster than
Mm hmm.
the big ones, and it seems like, especially when they're on the like curves and stuff, or in the mountains and stuff like that, that they move a lot slower, so that they can go back and
Yeah,
forth and
you can
stuff
just
like
sort
that.
of
But
take your off-road bike and try and catch up.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think yeah, I would like to see him explore that a little bit more. I would almost like to see him try and, like, in instead of just being like, hey, I'm trying to solve all these mysteries, use his historical thing as a, like, as a shield. Like, hey, here's what I want to do, but in the background, here's what I'm really doing,
Yeah.
is solving these mystery things. I want him to find some kind of way to legitimize what he's
Yes.
doing, because if he's doing that, then yes, he can
I
potentially
love
travel
that.
back and forth. He
Mhm.
can talk to other people, and it won't look suspicious. So
Yeah.
then, if he does need to get access to certain things or talk to certain people about stuff,
Mhm.
he can always just be like, "Hey, I'm documenting life here," you know.
Mhm.
Um, so if he
I'd like
could
that a
do
lot.
that, I think that would be fantastic. But you can't
And like
always critique the stuff that you don't have. So
no, no. I could be moving towards that though because when he went out of the caravan, like he left his mechanic's position and his boss
mhm.
was like, "Okay, like you're a great employee, but I can't guarantee that spot will still be here when you get
Yeah,
back." And it seems like he hasn't worked his way back home yet to find out like is my job still there?
yeah,
So maybe he could carve out a new space as I'm the historian and he is going to go around and get like real opinions from people. Like there is all of this hearsay and he's solving all these mysteries, but like the social aspect of it, I want more of that. Like, okay, you say, it's funny that you never see any casts from, the first 8 caravans. Can
right.
we go explore that? Like, what is it that stops that from happening? It makes them sound like they're like they're greedy and like they're always watching out for each other, but like what does that look like? Is that
Right.
really true? You say that the back of the caravan is like, oh, they're just scavengers, they're just, living on the edge. Are they?
Yeah, and I feel like I want to explore that stuff, but again, I
Mm,
don't want this. Here's how the caste system works in the first 8 cars.
yeah.
I want him to actually talk to people,
Yes.
and I want there to be an actual story to tell,
Mm,
as well as some kind of ulterior motive for him being there.
yes.
Of like, hey, I need to explore this caste system so that I can figure out what's really going on in the dark. Maybe I heard a rumor that there's a prison in here somewhere. Maybe Emma's being kept there, something like that. Um, who knows?
Yeah, I want there to be more relationships that we're following.
Yeah. I want to explore the relationship between the guard, between the librarian guy. I liked the
Oh yeah,
librarian
yeah, he's
guy.
not there very often, but he is nice.
Um, one of the relationships that I thought was interesting, but we didn't get to explore much, was the cook. I kind of want to talk about the cook a little
Yeah,
bit.
Auntie Denny's interesting.
Um, so there were a couple times where I got really confused in the story of just how characters knew things.
Yeah.
Um, the main one was basically end of season 1 when they're trying to solve that riddle, and they're like, well, silicone on the periodic table is number 14 or something like that, and he's just like, oh, that was her.
Mhm.
And I was like, what? How is that her? Why is that her? Why is
Because
Gamora?
she's because she's in that caravan. Like I get once they figured out, oh, periodic table, silicone is this element. You described as the
But
silicone cook. Who was the
when did
cook
they
of
mention
that?
that she was cook of section 14? Because I went back to try and find that because I was confused, and I was like, I don't think they mentioned that.
I don't
I
know if they
I
do
could be
mention it, but
wrong.
when he says it, I don't know. It felt clear and understandable to me that that is information he would have, but may not have necessarily said aloud. And I didn't feel like, oh, information is being kept from me or anything like that. Like I got it. I got why it didn't click until that moment.
I don't know why. Is she are there 14 cooks in that car? Are there is she in segment 14? Is she is this diner number 14?
Mhm.
Is her diner named 14? I don't know. I think that's one of the I guess missteps of the like, hey, we can only record so much.
Yeah.
So if there is important stuff, we do need to relay it to you. I felt like this was an important like thing to have noted previously,
Hmm.
and I don't feel like they did.
Okay.
But that being said, I liked the relationship they had. They've known each other for a long time. It seems almost familial. Like
Yeah.
she's more of a motherly figure. Like, hey, I'm protecting you from stuff, from stuff that you
Yeah.
shouldn't be involved in. That's why I lied. All of
Yeah.
that
And
stuff.
she's almost like the uh informant were this to be a more noir detective story.
Yeah, she's the bartender that
Yeah,
has all of the
I like that a
information.
lot. I like that that role is included in this,
Yeah.
sci-fi story. What are these monsters? What's in the dark? You also get that classic, like different, like there's sci-fi mystery solving, and then there's like the detective mystery solving, and you get that detective element
Hmm.
among everything else. It's just like space. What's getting us out here in space?
Yeah.
Where did we come from?
So one of the big revelations of this show
Mhm.
is that whatever this thing is in the dark, it's been here before the crash,
Yeah.
before this, I guess, meteor hit the
Mhm.
planet or whatever it was. Um, so what do you think this darkness is,
I
or what
don't.
is in the darkness?
It seems like it is something living, and it has to be something corporeal because him, his dad, like has a sample of it that he matches. Oh, I kind of like that it's vague. And like I've been and like when I try and pitch the show to people, I'm like, it's something in the dark that gets
Some
them.
kind of
I don't
evil, yeah.
know, but like I'm supposed to not know. Like I need to make sure people are aware that it's
That's
not like
that's
they
part
just
of the mystery. Like we're
yes,
trying to
yes.
figure out what it is.
Yeah, they're not being super vague and writing it off like we don't know because we still have yet to be told.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm It seems like there's a number of creatures already on the planet. We know of the grabbers, the five-legged squirrel-like things.
Hmm.
They hunt other stuff for meat. There was that one. The first episode of season 2 almost doesn't fit in. One because it's other characters, but it's almost comedic
Hmm.
in the way it's delivered because they were talking to that one guy who supposedly had some kind of animal in the car,
Oh
and they were
yeah.
like, how did would that even fit in the and they're like, no, it wouldn't
Yeah.
fit. But like they have that stuff which seemed to be more of their version of cows or
Yeah.
something. I don't think it's a native creature. I think it's them. I think it is human, or was originally
Mm.
human, and then something on, like, there's some kind of parasite or something that has
Yeah.
infected these humans and attached itself to them, but can only survive in the dark or something.
Hmm.
Or yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like how Planet of the Apes is this going to be? Like, is the monster ultimately man?
They're back on Earth. This is Earth. um, but like somehow the thing that fell out of the sky was some kind of catalyst for
Yes.
this thing reacting the way it
Hmm.
did, whether it had some kind of chemical or some kind of tainted food supply of some kind, um or if it's robotic in nature. What if it's like
Hmm.
nanites that have somehow infected something, you know? I don't know.
Mm.
Or
Yeah.
some kind of monstrosity they created that they experimented on, and lab experiment gone wrong.
Yeah, like how, all the people who landed here originally from Earth, like, what did they do to this planet when they got there? Were
Because
they
it seems
entirely
like they were there long enough to build cities.
Yeah, yeah, and they got there like they were running out of fuel. Like they crash landed there pretty much like they were ragged. They had to cannibalize their ships to make buildings because they
Mm-hmm.
lost so many like supply ships along the way. Like they were in rough states.
Yeah.
But like how we're looking back at them benevolently, who knows how true this is?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the kind of themes of this show is they are in a circumstance where they have to rely on rumors. And that's what Joseph
Yeah.
is fighting against. Like, we need to have some sort of real record. We can't just have like story passed down, passed down, passed down, passed down, because you're going to lose so much of what's actually going on with that.
Yeah. Or we need to take the information in the actual records we do have,
Mm-mm.
and or are being hidden from us, and
Yeah.
make that public knowledge. I
Yeah.
do I
Like,
do have one other kind of theory about
uh
the
huh.
darkness stuff. Um I mentioned, what if it's more robotic? What if the thing that's in the darkness does have something to do with this number voice
Yeah.
thing? Because he mentioned that he got left there and he had to stay behind. We don't know why he had to stay behind. What if this is some kind of like robotic sentient technology thing, and that's why they sacrifice all of this technology to
It
them
had
to
to be
kind of replenish it
quarantined
to,
almost.
yeah. um like what if he, yeah, like what if there is some kind of sentient robotic life form thing, um because when we see the sample of the like, hey, here's the sample of something from the dark, and here's the sample of like something else. They didn't really explain it all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Of, is it plant life? Is it human life? Is it metallic? What is
Yeah.
this thing? It's just, hey, we have these two samples. One is more recent, and
Mm-hmm.
one is ancient, and they're both
And
the
they're,
same thing.
oh, spooky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
I
So
think,
that could be interesting.
and I think season three will get us back to that because we'll also be getting back to Emma.
Yeah.
Talking about like the plant life and all of that, I want to stop and say, I really love that the upper crust of this world, the royalty of this world, more or less, is the botanists who just like grow the plants on these big farm trucks that keep everybody alive. Like,
Mhm.
how.
Which seems like a weird thing. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
that's okay.
again, because the rich people are kind
Yeah.
of kept in the front of the caravan with a lot
Hmm.
of the secrets, why are the botanists up there? That almost, I mean, sure, there's it's science, and it's important to understand this stuff so we can eat the food and stuff like that, but it's weird to be like, we have the government, the aristocrats, the rich people,
Yeah.
and then the people who like plants.
I
It's like,
I wonder
huh.
if it's kind of logistic. Like, if this giant caravan is always driving towards the light, the closer you are to the front of the caravan, the closer you are
Are
to the
to the
light, the
light.
more light you're going to get.
It might be something like
Oh,
that, yeah.
I the fact that it's like the rich people, the people with resources are at the front and they live the high life, and the people with no resources are at the back and they live a low life is like a little too. I don't know. It feels a little tired to me personally, but I do like these individual twists that are put on it. Like, it seems like you can guess everything around here is still so scarce.
Mm-hmm.
Even these rich people, these aristocrats, they probably still have jobs, really important jobs. Like, I don't think there's anybody in this culture that gets to rest on their laurels. Everybody has to earn their way around,
Yeah.
which is also part of this puzzle. I want him to go up there and like find like, yes, you may be like super snobby, but you are integral. Like, you are so beneficial to us despite whatever attitude you may or may not have. And I
Mm-hmm.
like that out of all of these different positions, like, it's not the doctors, the lawyers, the politicians, it is the farmers that
Yeah.
are the absolute upper crust. That's a neat twist.
Which, yeah, I mean, again, it might not like be anything spooky and
Yeah.
scary of like, oh, why are the botanists up there? They must be hiding something.
Mhm.
It might just be, yeah, hey, food is important, like, especially
We need
because
to
we're
eat.
on the move. We need to
Yeah.
make sure that, and people who know how to grow food and deal with plants, maybe use some
Hmm.
kind of fuel based off of these plants, and so we can continue moving the caravans and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like
like they don't.
that would be a super important job. Let's make sure they're well paid, well fed. They are the
Yeah.
top of the line. It might just be something like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I want to learn more about like, how is everything fueled? Like, we can guess, they're growing all these plants. Maybe it is some sort of plant-based fuel. Maybe it's solar powered.
Hmm.
Oh, like, these little logistic things. I probably couldn't take like an entire 20 minutes of here's just explanations to all these little mundane technical things, but I want it like sprinkled here and there. Like, I
Yeah,
really like the exposition of this world because this world is like so unique and so interesting.
yeah. Like, if you're gonna explain to me how you get water, how you make the fuel or
Mhm.
stuff like that, that's fine. You can tell me that, but I want a story around it. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I want him to go out hunting with someone else who hunts and knows how to hunt, and he's
Yes.
interviewing him. How do we do this? What's happening here? Something attacks and they get separated, and he knows like one thing of how to survive, and
Mhm.
so how does he do that and make it back and stuff like that? And he learns these things along the way. Like,
Mhm.
I think that would be neat, rather than
Yeah.
just like, here's how it's done.
I think there's so much I want to learn about this world. Like, it seems like they're so on the move. Is there anything non-essential? Is there any leisure? Is there any art? Like is everybody busy being a
Mhm.
mechanic or a farmer or a cook or something like
Yeah.
that? Is anybody a musician? Is anybody a poet around here?
Yeah. Interesting stuff to ask. Interesting stuff. Let's see. I guess last question I want to
Mm,
ask kind of about the
yeah.
dark slash the mystery stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, is there any kind of protection from the dark, do you think,
Yeah.
besides just being in the light? Like they obviously had to, or not, I guess had to, they
Mhm.
moved out of the darkness so they could just stay away from it, period. But why can't they just lock themselves in a building? Why,
Yeah.
like, what's going on there? Is it because this thing is gigantic and it's
Mhm.
huge, or is it something else?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Can you hunker down? Do you always have to run? Is it possible to hide? Is it possible to fight back? Like, is it only the sunlight that keeps these things away? If you had like crazy bright halogen lights all around you, is that also going to work?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to find if there was a
In
time.
umbrella with light bulbs on the inside. So you just
You're just walking around in a light tube and you're
yeah,
safe.
exactly.
Like, are they the number one predators? Like, did something evolve that was stronger than the dark? And these people have just never seen it because they're never there.
They never
I'd
went
like,
back in. Yeah.
yeah, I wonder if there will ever be a time where they realize our ancestors did the right thing at that time. Right now, it's something different. To keep
Yeah.
living the way we've been living is not our best option anymore.
Because we were their food supply and we ran away, they died out because they didn't
Oh,
have
oh,
food.
we're fine
Yeah.
now?
Something like that. I'm so in regards to that, I'm wondering if they were trying to study that, what this thing is, and that might be what these outposts are.
Yeah.
The one where he found the notes and I think found the tablet in one
Mhm.
of them, and that dead guy was in the corner.
Mhm.
Um, like, what are those stations? Because we don't really, we know there's those kind of stations. There's the churches. There's this big, like,
Yeah.
almost camera like thing or some kind of pylon that looked at them. uh yeah, like there's so much to explore here.
Mhm.
I think season 3 will be interesting to say the least.
Yeah. I'm looking down on my phone because I'm trying to find, do I have anything to recommend based on this show? This is usually how we end our episodes. Kyle, can you think of anything? If somebody liked the Earth Collective, what should they check out next?
um let's see. If they liked the Earth Collective, I I don't know. I actually haven't listened to this. I think there's another podcast called, God, what it's is it? It's something with Mars. Oh well, I'll skip that one because
Huh.
I don't really have a good recommendation for that one. I don't know. Oh geez, this is a tough one. I'm thinking more of video games.
Oh.
So there's a video game, or well, it's a book as well. It's a Russian series of novels called Metro 2033 and Metro
Huh.
Last Light, Metro Exodus, and stuff like that. But they've made video games based off of those books.
Mm.
It takes place after like a nuclear war somehow, something, and a bunch of the people moved into the Russian subway system to live and
Mhm.
survive. And so that's where they have their houses and all of that stuff. And they've not gone up to the surface because there's all these monsters and these,
Mhm.
this
Ooh.
darkness up there that they don't really know. And there's still a whole bunch of radiation. But then there's an interesting aspect that the main character might have a way to kind of communicate to
Mm.
some of these monsters up there. And so there's this mystery of like, what are these monsters exactly? So if you haven't checked it, if you're a video
Ooh.
game fan and you like playing games, I would say check out the Metro series of games. I think it's like Metro Exodus is the recent
Huh.
one. There's Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light.
That's an interesting pitch. Neat.
Yeah,
I would say this reminds me the most of Wolf 359, which is still
that's a good
like
one.
this has been wrapped up for a while. It's still one of my favorite audio dramas. It's so strong. And especially in the beginning, it's well, you know what? Throughout the entirety of the story, it's got that like survivalist aspect to it. It's set in
Mm-hmm.
this, space station out there, like way out in space, that you learn at first you do kind of get the feeling like, oh, they're like kind of the misfits space station of this entire like space exploration corporation. But as the time goes on, you do find out, oh, they're not just the bottom of the barrel. They are kind of actively being neglected,
Right.
and they are running so short on anything that they need to get by. It's
Exactly.
got
Yeah.
that part of it. It's got the mystery part of it. If you like the kind of spooky aspects of this story, you could listen to, is it not the Hollow Man, the Empty Man? That one episode of Wolf 359?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's a great one. There's also another audio drama that I've listened to just a couple episodes of. This is another thing that I started, kind of got a feel for it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put you on the shelf till later. I'm coming back to this. The time just hasn't been
Sweet.
right yet. This is a show called The Bridge.
I've heard of it.
It's an this I'm reading the pitch straight off my the description straight off my podcast app. It's an alternate 2016 and Watchtower 10 sits in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, keeping lonely watch over the transcontinental bridge. Each watchtower sits hundreds of feet away from the bridge, broadcasting regular traffic reports to ensure that proper safety precautions are taken. These lighthouses for cars are filled with a carefully selected and very capable crew. And this is a little bit not quite sitcom-y, but it's got like a cast of characters.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like a weird misfit family. Also, like, Wolf 359. And it's got that same just sort of weird, out in, out in the middle of nowhere, isolation, things are kind of eerie, what's going on feel to it.
Cool. That sounds good to me.
Hmm.
Good audio drama recommendations. Um, so let's see. I don't have anything else to say about the Earth Collective. Go check it out.
Yeah, it's
Season 3 should be coming down the road soon.
soonish.
I don't
Yeah,
know exactly when, but
yeah, this is I do really recommend this show. I found this a couple years ago and it has always stuck with me. It's really unique
sweet.
and it's not terribly long. Like I think the entirety of the feed takes up like 5.5 hours.
Something like that. Yeah. I think I listened to all of season 2 yesterday.
Yeah.
There you go. But now it is my turn to pitch what we are going to do for next week. So let's get
Yes.
to the pitches. Pitch number 1 is I guess a short mini series, a 6-issue mini series. It's a comic called God Shaper.
Oh.
And it is by Simon Spurrier with art by Jonas Goonface. And let's see, where is the description here? Eisner Award nominated writer, breakout, blah blah blah. Where did introduce a vast world teeming with bold ideas exploring ownership, freedom, and the pettiness of possession, both physical and spiritual. NA is a God shaper, a godless social pariahs with the ability to mold and shape the gods of other people. Paired with Bud, an off-kilter but affectionate god without a human. The two travel from town to town looking for shelter, a hot male, and the next paying rock and roll gig. 6 issues. I have the whatchamacallit. I have the Comixology page pulled up here. It's only $7.99 if you want to buy it, or you can read it for free on Comixology Unlimited right down here. So that is pitch number one.
What is that from?
It's from a couple years ago.
Okay.
Let's see.
I think I've heard Cy Spurrier's name in relation to X-Men, but when in X-Men's Legacy, I cannot remember.
Yeah. But yeah, so I heard about this a couple years ago. It seemed interesting to me. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer. It ended up being just this, these 6 issues. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to pick that up. And it just never did. I somehow forgot about it. And then I went into Comixology this morning to be like, oh, what can I pitch? And I saw this and I was like, oh yeah, that book. I'm going to do that one. So that is pitch number 1. Pitch number 2 is a Hulu original series called Castle Rock. It's a 10-episode series, I guess a horror anthology television series based on the works of Stephen King. It premiered in 2018 in July. All of that stuff. It looks like it all takes place in a fictional town of Castle Rock, Maine.
Yep.
It intertwines the characters and stories and stuff like that. So it doesn't seem like it's all one big story, but it's smaller, like anthology stuff, all happening within the same town. It sounds like. So there you go. This one has also been on my list from when they first put it out, but I just never got around to it there. Pitch number 3 is a manga. It's 2 volumes of a manga, and that's its entirety, called What a Wonderful World.
Oh, that sounds sweet.
It is also a collection of short stories written by Inio Asano, and it consists of loosely connected short stories about young adults in modern Japan and their life decisions, is what Wikipedia describes it as. I've read 1 or 2 other mangas, I think, from this creator, and I liked what I read. It wasn't necessarily anything that stuck with me, but enough to be like, I want to read more from this creator. I think they might have some interesting stuff. So this is a short one. It's only 2 volumes. I'm not sure where you can find this one, but I'm sure it is out there somewhere. I saw it on Amazon for pretty cheap. But yeah. This is pitch number 3. What a Wonderful World. Pitch number 1 was Godshaper. Pitch number 2, Castle Rock. And pitch number 3, What a Wonderful World.
Oh, Kyle, I'm definitely going with Castle Rock. After going through this, I am hungry for horror. Spook me right up. I'm lightly familiar with Stephen King. I read Salem's Lot and one of his short story collections when I was in high school. Okay. I've seen The Shining, which I guess he personally does not actually like. I'm lightly familiar with him. I would like to learn more. And I see this was also produced by J.J. Abrams. Yeah. And I've enjoyed everything I've seen from him.
I've enjoyed most of the stuff
intrigued
from him.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued by an anthology story in one town together.
Yeah, I think that should be fun. I think it's been a while since we've done something that was horror related.
Yes.
So I was like, we should do some more horror stuff, especially since we kind of mentioned it on our on a previous episode, our Avengers spoiler casting. We were talking about some horror stuff. Yeah, there you go. It's 10 episodes long. You guys can find it on Hulu. Castle Rock is what we will do for this next week.
Cool.
Yeah. Melissa, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WilkyWit. That's WilkywIt.
and I am at Yo Kyle Springer on both Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want to stay up to date with all of our shows and podcasts and stuff, we are on Twitter at the Whatnauts. You guys can find more info at thewhatnauts.com. You can search for us on your podcast feed stuff, wherever you get your podcast, just by searching the Whatnauts. And what else? Patreon.com/thewhatnauts. If you want to throw us your life savings, that would be fantastic. Because you don't need it. We do, though. That would be great, right? I mean, yeah. I wouldn't complain. Melissa, would you complain? No? Not at all. Cool.
I'd buy you certainly a lovely dinner in exchange for your life savings.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be back next week with Castle Rock Season 1. Adios, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of the Whatnauts Review Show. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe go check out one of our other videos down here or subscribe to our channel up that way. I don't know why I did this. It's that way. Do that one. That's the one.